Welcome to the Unlock Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Harris, and I'm here today with Lynell George. Yes, today is the day we're going to do something completely new and different. I'm introducing a new format to our program. You guys have been listening to me for a while. You know how much I love to read. I love to imagine into a future where our ancestors have gone before us but left us some clues. And one of the people that I love to refer to is that of Octavia E. Butler. And we have the beautiful privilege and blessing of having Lynell George with us. Lynell George is a Los Angeles treasure. She is a local journalist known for her work all over Los Angeles, a freelance writer, she's an author, and a frequent contributor to the LA Times and a number of publications internationally known. Lynell is going to bless us with her understanding of the work of Octavia E. Butler. She was contracted by the Huntington Library to do an interview of Octavia after her passing. And we're going to dive in to hear what Octavia has to teach us and to share with us and to let us know what she knows about change. Lynell had the privilege and honor of really diving into 385 boxes of memorabilia and ephemera that once belonged to the great Octavia E. Butler. We're going to hear about what that was like and what she learned. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much, Lynell, for being willing to be my very first guest.
Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your interest and your time.
Well, thank you. So before we started recording, we had a little mini chat, and I told you that I think of Los Angeles as this place where dreams come alive. People come to Los Angeles to make their dreams happen. And Octavia E. Butler is one of the people who happened to be born and raised in Los Angeles County, and she brought to it a certain wonder and energy to her own artistry. And she allowed herself to dream into a world where she could become a writer. And like her, Lynell, you're a writer. So tell me a little bit about what was it like to be able to have the privilege of getting into the archives that belonged to Miss Butler?
It was one of those experiences where, and since my career, I have gone from when I was in school wanting to be a fiction writer. So I know that side of writing, which is what Octavia was doing, to going to journalism. And the thing about journalism is when you get to interview someone, it's so wonderful to be able to have quality time with someone, meaning more than an hour or more than 2 hours, to be able to spend a length of time. And then you feel like you can break through walls. This was so different and it was so intimate because instead of just sitting across from someone, I was actually looking over her shoulder and watching her work and listening to her innermost thoughts. And there was such an intimacy of being in a writer's archive and a writer who had so many different voices that she would lean on. And I mean, personal voices. So I was looking at her letters, I was looking at her journals, and she did different kind of journaling. Some journaling was very specific to the work. Some journaling was helping her manage her anxiety and her fears so she could be a clearer thinker when she got back to the actual work. And so that was like, for me, what a gift to be able to be inside a writer's head in the way that her archive in particular provided.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because in preparation for doing this interview, I really was inside of your book.
Mm.
And I felt like it was a completely different person. Can you speak a little bit about Octavia versus Estelle
Mm.
and the tenderness that you approached writing this book with?
Thank you for asking that. That was to me such a important revelation that she again used that page to do. Octavia was born here in Pasadena in the late 1940s, and when she wanted to be a writer, there were no examples for her. She was at the very beginning interested in fantasy and science fiction and the sciences and astronomy. And the thing that really stood out for me as a child, her mother also was named Octavia. It was Octavia Margaret is her mother, and Octavia Estelle was her. And in the household, she was known as Estelle or Estella or Junie because she was born in June. And so all the references in the early days is to Estelle, and you start to learn who Estelle is. And Estelle is shy. Estelle is very inward. She keeps a lot to herself. And what Octavia realized as she got older, she had to be a different person to be in the world, to be the writer and public person that she envisioned for herself. And so that meant that just like she was on the page creating characters, she had to create a new self. And that became Octavia. And that's was so fascinating when she turns that corner and decides, I can do this. I can embody this person. And so she started to sketch out, well, who will Octavia be? And I loved this. There were details like Octavia will wear bright colors. Octavia will wear makeup. Octavia will wear jewelry. Octavia will be bold. She has no problem speaking in public. And I loved how that became part of a series of affirmations that she would create for herself. But the main one was creating this persona that could.
Yes, I appreciated that. And so as I was doing the research, I would listen and hear this really tender voice of Estelle and notice how she was becoming Octavia. She's taking on this persona.
Mhm.
And she is referring to some of the same kinds of things that I referred to when I was a young person. Like
Mm,
my first introduction to personal development was through Dale Carnegie. I won a
mm,
scholarship to a Dale Carnegie course because I was in something for school. And so my parents drove me from Riverside to Orange County every week to do this weekly course for Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I didn't know how important that was, but it really was a kind of pivotal moment for me to decide, oh, I can be what I decide I want to become. And
powerful.
Estelle is going through that stage. And like a lot of people I've noticed, it seemed to happen around age 14, where she just like really kind of put her stake in the ground and said, yes, I am doing this, even though maybe she had some trouble in school, or maybe some teachers didn't respect or understand where she was coming from. She
Right.
really decided, and she was listening to audio tapes, Earl Nightingale,
Yes.
and that's so powerful because she's kind of alone in that. There weren't a lot of people who were diving into the personal development world, and you did have to do it by audio tapes
Hmm.
because there was no other way to do it. There was no internet.
Hmm. Exactly. And that's the thing. You said something that was so key because the other thing is it's because she's trying to find things that help her. And even though, and she says it over and over again, even though the Dale Carnegie books and the tapes weren't directed at her, this young Black child, she figured out a way to make them work for her. And,
Absolutely.
and she tailored the messages for her.
I liked, she talked about her goals, and in her journals, she had affirmations. And so she's talking about the power of how you talk to yourself.
Mhm.
and change your own mind in order to create a foundation for the life that you would love to have. You might not have it right now,
Yeah,
but you can't have it if you can't see it.
exactly.
And she had some affirmations. Would you share with us some of those affirmations?
The one that stays with me, the one that I often repeat is so be it, see to it.
Mm,
It's the one she says, it's written in the journals very frequently. It was her way of putting whatever it was she wanted. Maybe she wanted to get her payment right away. But what it was most is was like these lists of what her goals were to be a bestseller, not just in one newspaper, but in the 5 newspapers,
right.
to own a house. And it wasn't just a house, it was a house that was very specific, that had a yard and garden and an office space. I loved that she always was very specific about this office space that she needed, and a desk and bookshelves. And it would be anything she asked for, it was so be it, see to it. And that's the one that really stays with me more than any of them.
I love that because to me it's happening before we have revealed the science of neuroplasticity. She has an idea that this is how it works, but it's not because anybody's told her that.
Right.
She's just noticed in her own mind, this is how I feel when I talk poorly to myself, and this is
Mhm.
how I feel when I empower myself. I'm going to aspire to go toward more power. And
Mhm.
so that's what she's doing. I really love that.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You really hit it about the feeling bad and the absorption of that, and knowing that she had to get her brain out of that groove.
Right before Maya Angelou died, I heard an interview of her where she talked about saving everything. And she called them tips and things in progress. And she's just like, put it in a box, you never know. But your ephemera, your thoughts, your memorabilia has power, it
Mhm.
has interest, and know that you are important. When do you think Octavia came to know that all these little bits and pieces of information that came to become Octavia, when did she start to appreciate she had something to leave behind for the world?
I love this question because it's something I think about a lot. My thoughts about this have changed, but they're all the same. So I realize, like, I think it is like a necklace in a way. It felt first thought she was keeping these things because she was such a faithful filer, recorder of information. She was creating libraries in her home, and then that became resource materials. But then I started to think, I think she's keeping all this as evidence. Like, these are little pieces on a pathway, like a Hansel and Gretel kind of thing. Like, like, this is what it took to get here.
Oh, I love
Follow
that.
me, follow me here. And that's the gift of this archive, the things that she kept. And someone who was asking me early on, do you think she was a hoarder? I said, no, it's very specific, the things she was keeping, drafts and drafts, because I know as a writer, you want to see how you got to something, and
Mhm.
we never go in a straight line. And I think sometimes she wants to get back to things that she's cut out of a manuscript. And this is back when the archive to me is the most interesting, is when everything is either handwritten in pencil or a pen, and then she starts to type, and then she cuts things up and she pastes them, and it's so wonderful. And when you were saying powerful, yes, all of this ephemera, I feel the energy of it, like able to touch something that another writer has touched and thought about, and you just start to see her patterns.
It's like connect the dots.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's really beautiful. I actually, doing all this research and getting ready, I
Mhm.
started to feel like, oh, I don't want to look at images of her at videos of her or interviews of her
Mm.
because that's Octavia, but
Yes. Yes.
Estelle is in the book.
Yes.
And Estelle is the one who can really guide us and encourage us
Yes.
because there's so much tenderness in this book. And it's like they're literally two different people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's funny, like I've asked people, well, let me back this up. It's
Mhm.
interesting. I was in a book group and one of the women showed up toward the end and she said, I wanted to talk to you because it was so hard to read this book because I didn't know she struggled so much. I didn't know because she presented herself as so strong and so fierce. And so I guess strong is the one, like, and that's what we see. We see this
It's an
regal.
armor.
Yes, armor, exactly. And that's what I said. I think this is what's important for people to understand that she had to come to this. She had to protect herself. And I loved, as someone who knows what it's like, as a Black woman writer who knows what it's like to be out in the world and what you have to do and how you like have to don your armor. And that's
Hmm.
what she shows us. And that's a very vulnerable display. And I think about just when she even decided to give her papers to the Huntington. And I often think, like, if she had had more time on the planet, would
Hmm.
she have culled some of the really personal stuff, the really tender stuff? No, this is a gift for us to know that this is what it took. I think she comes across as even more strong, in that.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it when you
yeah.
said that. It's interesting to me that she does have this power of affirmation that she, one of the things that I use when I talk about my coaching is discuss with discernment. And
Hmm.
she's very wise in she doesn't tell everybody her dream
Exactly.
because they can't be trusted with it. And she
Exactly.
knows that. But
Yes.
she needs a place to tell the truth. And so
Absolutely.
she has these journals. Can you talk about what she called her journals or when she
Yes.
took her own counsel? What was that like?
Yes, I love that because that's the other affirmation. You were just keying into the things that keep your own counsel. That one really struck me because it started because she was at work and she one of her many part-time jobs and she did all kinds of stuff like she worked in the stock room at the old Broadway department store. She worked calling people about their credit. I can't even imagine her
Oh my
doing,
God, I'm sure
you
she
know.
hated that.
I'm sure she did. And one day at work, she'd mentioned somebody must have asked her about writing. It's unclear, but whatever it was, it sent her into this spin. And she had these journals, as I mentioned before. One was to work on work, but other she called her sessioning books. And they were her sessioning journals. And those were the ones where she poured out her thoughts about things like this. And she would tell herself, you should have not have said that to that person because of course, they don't want you to be big. They want you to be small. They don't want you to have more than they have. Remember that. That's where that comes from. And you could tell whatever that person said to her stung, but she had to
Right.
get it out of her. It's very raw on those pages. But you can see also in the same day, she has moved on because she's in another journal the same day working on a short story. Oh,
Really? Oh,
yeah,
that's very
yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
But when she goes through this counsel of pumping herself back up, having made the mistake of revealing too much to someone who wasn't worthy of
yes,
holding her dream,
yes,
she also kind of unpacks, well, of course, that's how they see it. This is all the evidence that they've seen up until this point. And so there's almost like an aspect of forgiveness in
yes,
the unpacking of
yes,
what has been said. It's like,
yes,
that was then, that's what they think based on this, this, and this. And so it gives her some room for maybe they're not trying to hurt me. And
yes.
she actively says, the people who love me the most are the ones that I really have to be careful with.
Absolutely. And I thought about that a lot too, because people have asked, well, she didn't have support from her family. I said, you have to understand her family who were saying Black girls should not be full-time writers. They were doing that because they loved her. They was like, no, you can be a writer, but go get yourself a government job. Go go be a secretary, go be a nurse, go get something with a pension. Don't do that. And like you said, she had to come to this understanding that this was love. It wasn't, you're not smart, you can't do it. It's just like you said, Lori, it was, they just couldn't see what she saw.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So she's discussing with discernment. She's writing down her dreams. She's making them real. She's writing them down with detail so she can walk through the pictures of her own mind of
Mhm.
this is what it looks like when it's all come together.
Absolutely.
And I love that. And also, there is really no private good. And so all that she wants it for herself because it's going to fortify her. It's going to make her know that I did that thing. I am a writer. I made that happen.
Yes.
But she also wants it as a Thanksgiving for her mom who did buy her a typewriter, who brought her those books home and all of the things that her mom had done for her up until that point. She wants it for herself, she wants it for her mom, and she's also saving because she wants to create scholarships and encourage other people. And she has these visions of schools and dynasties for young Black people. And she's really clear about I
Yes.
love Black people.
Yes.
She's not
Yes.
apologetic about that. And I
Nope.
love that.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's like this idea of, I'm going to create something for people that I didn't have, and especially for Black children that I did not have. I want them to be able to have access to things and to writers and books and ideas. And how do I do this? How can I turn my legacy? How can my legacy be something like this that's nurturing and embracing?
Right. And the other thing is, she didn't buy into the prescription. She tried the college track,
Mhm.
but it's taking too long. There was no proof that that concept was going to work. I might as well just start writing.
Right, exactly. Because she couldn't even find the right places to be. Like, she wanted a very specific kind of writing class, and she couldn't find that. And in a way, I think it was a gift. She would have been sidetracked and subsumed in something. I think it made that urgency that I got to start now. She didn't waste time. So she probably would still have like, oh, this doesn't work for me. But I'm so glad she was able to stick to her guns and know that, okay, I'm just, again, going to have to make it. I'm just going to have to make it myself. I'm going to have to create it myself. Again, creating things on the page.
Yeah. And I think that her overall arc of her whole life is really instructive because we're kind of told that there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things in
Mm-hmm,
everything.
mm-hmm,
And she really found her own way. And she was doing her very, very best
yeah,
at what she could do. And so she's making sure that, okay, I have to keep a roof over my head. She's
yeah.
not walking around going, the government should support artists. She's like,
No, no,
it's like, it is what it is. I need
right.
a roof. I need to eat. I need electricity. I got to do what I got to do. So there's going to be hours devoted to creating income for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want those hours to preserve my brain cells so that I can save those brain cells for my art.
Yes,
And I love that.
yes.
But also, she did incorporate exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a part of her routine. She's walking, she's using the mountains, and everything is a tool for her.
Yes.
Everything. So
Ab-
the
abs-
walk, the bus, like everyone's telling her you really need to drive. And she's like, no, I really don't.
No. Yeah, yeah. And I loved how she used, like you said, her time. And that's one of the things in the archive. I loved looking at her calendars because I thought, how did she bend time this way? This is amazing. But that's because she knew exactly how to use all of it. During her walking, she would listen to her tapes or the news. And then she'd get on the bus and she'd observe people and listen to conversations and see what was on people's minds, how people interacted, how they didn't interact. And I think about like there's short stories that are based on things that happened on buses with her. So there's material was everywhere. And she always would say, writers use everything and it's there. You don't need to look too far. You just need to absorb and be present.
I love that. If she had been in her own little box of her own little car, then those conversations, she wouldn't be hearing them.
Exactly.
She would be interacting with the world. You know, defensive driving is a real thing, but she didn't have to do that because she could turn that over to someone else. And so now that she's being driven, she
Mhm.
has time to think, time to write, time to observe. And
Right.
so she's using the tool of write it down. So
Yes.
we learned from Octavia that we keep a notebook, we keep a pen with us because we're writing it all down, everything that we see. So
Right.
a notebook and a pen is important because one, she's writing down her dreams,
Yes.
and two, she's writing her observations, and three, she's keeping her time sacred.
That's right. All of those things. Absolutely. And it was fully ritual, all of it.
A ritual. I love that. I noticed that when I reached out to you,
Mhm.
one, you were very Octavia with, okay, this Black woman has reached out to another Black woman. I'm going to say yes, but I
Yes.
have to do it within these circumstances. I've
Mhm.
got this, and do. So, Miss Harris, I'm happy to meet with you when I have met my obligations, my needs, and my calendar. And I
Mhm.
think Octavia would have had very much the same response.
Yeah, I think for sure what I've learned from her is this idea because whenever I do something like this, I want to be fully present. Journalism is its own, it's so hard because you are working around so many other people's schedules and expectations. And I love the collaboration of it. But when you're a reporter, it's both sides. It's like you are interacting with the editors and the designers and all of these other people in their input. And then you have the actual people you have to work with and be open to. And so that's what I learned when I first started as a reporter. I was always exhausted, like always exhausted because I was trying to do too much. And I remember one editor pulling me aside from another publication and saying to me, you should not be exhausted. So let's talk about how you can better organize your time so you can do those things. Because I want to show up fully me and with the capacity. And so I did learn that from her, or I should say, it was confirmed in looking at her archive.
Now, one thing that I noticed as a contrast with between you and Estelle is your mom was a teacher and you already had an idea about you wanting to be a writer. Like
Mhm.
Estelle, you were a big reader,
Mhm.
but it wasn't so far off the field. Your mom wouldn't say, you can't be a writer. That sounds
Right,
crazy. You
right.
didn't have that. Now that you've gone through the archives, what other things can you appreciate about your beginning that you know you kind of had a little bit of a head start, even though as a Black woman living in Pasadena, Altadena area, there's so many similarities that remain.
It's a good question. One thing, though, I have to say, in all honesty, I remember when I told my parents that I wanted to be a writer, and they were also like Octavia's mother. That's great. But also, the undercurrent of that was you should get a teaching credential just in case.
Your
And
plan B.
exactly. And I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. And so there was some pushback about that. Like you said, I did not get the messages that I can't. It was plan B. So that was different, but it was still there. I
Mhm.
think not until I got a staff position at the Times did they start to heave a sigh of relief. Like, okay, this might be okay. But whatever worry they had, it wasn't active. The similarity I'm seeing in our paths is after I left doing full-time work and freelanced. And then it becomes where I get encouragement from being in that archive of, sometimes you can't see that far down the road. You have to have faith, and wherever your faith comes in, what shape it takes. And that was the one thing that, especially during COVID, where there was so much uncertainty and I didn't know whether or not, like, is work gonna still be work? Will I be able to keep moving forward? And I would hear her in my head and just think, you've done this before, you'll do it again. Some things are going to be surprising, but I still think it's the uncertainty that comes with deciding to bet on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the hardest thing. And it's the thing that is the most, I would say, it's the one that echoes the most. And it's when I hear her the most, is to keep going. So as much as it's different, some of it's the same. And
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a lot from her, that stay the path.
Yeah. I heard, which is not necessarily in the book, but it seemed like the undercurrent of the book was, I am a writer. I will write, or I will
Mhm.
die trying.
Yes.
And that's a difficult position to take.
Yeah.
But she also says the only time she ever felt even slightly tempted to engage in self-harm is when she started trying to come up with something else other than the thing she was put on earth to do.
That's absolutely right.
It really was beautiful. I love that she had the foresight to save all of her memorabilia and ephemera and to make a plan,
Mhm.
because many people in our community are very reluctant to make a plan.
Yes.
And our ephemera sometimes just disappear and end up in landfills
Yes.
because we fail to make a plan. And the Huntington was kind of the perfect place because it's the neighborhood.
Exactly. And I thought about that a lot when I was there. And the fact that I could end my day and I'd take some notes about with addresses of things that she described or where she had lived. And maybe even those places didn't exist anymore, like the homes she lived in briefly.
Mm-hmm.
But I could get a sense of what her environment was. There's one day she was describing this tree on New York Drive, and she thought that tree's not going to be here much longer. And it's near this. Well, so much was gone, including that tree, but there was enough in her description that I could figure out where it was, where it had.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I just got chills, even just retelling that, is that she just would lead me to some place and I would just have this strong urge. I need to see what she saw, where
Right.
she sat and waited for her buses, for example. My favorite journals were these little ones, the walk thoughts, small little
Mm-hmm.
memo books where she would describe what was blooming. And during that season, whenever I see certain things like crepe myrtle and acorns and magnolia pods, I think of her. She's here. She's very present.
Right. And I love that Octavia did research.
Oh,
So even though these things came out of her mind and it was science fiction, it wasn't whole cloth just craziness that she made up. It was based in something real,
mhm,
which I think people who are reluctant to get into science fiction are reluctant because they think it is something whole cloth just made up. But
mhm.
she's responding to the environment in which she finds herself.
Absolutely.
And so their life is predictable, and she's acknowledging that. And life is change. Winter follows fall, and then there's spring, and all of that. Those things are predictable. And there is recession, and then there is expansion. And then
Mhm.
she says, and what can I do with that? And that question, what if?
Exactly.
So, Lynell, first of all, I want to just commend you on this beautiful book. It actually is gorgeous, and I want to commend Angel City Press for having the foresight to put together such a gorgeous book with images. As a journalist, someone who makes your bread and butter with words, what was it like to work with images as well?
I really knew that we needed to have all kinds of different visuals because it really felt because what I was looking at in the archive told a story on its own. So that tactile feeling of the energy that I would feel when I would pick up a journal or a calendar of hers. And I wanted the reader to experience that as well. And then when you were asking me about Pasadena and Altadena and its proximity to the Huntington. So I wanted to show the environment. So I really started to think about, again, what was Octavia seeing? What was she doing? And they were so open to doing a book that focused on the actual physical ephemera. And I thought each piece tells a story, a notebook, a pen, her bus pass, these essential bus
Yes.
passes. Each item told a story about how Octavia constructed herself, this recipe, and they were open to it. I was so grateful that he had much more to do to try to get clearances for everything.
Oh,
But I
wow.
needed, we didn't need necessarily a page or a manuscript. That's why I kept thinking, just to see the notebook, just to see this pink notebook that she wrote her first fiction in, I
Yeah.
thought would tell people a story.
There was one more point that I wanted to make was I started, but I didn't bring it all the way home, is Octavia approached her life and her work with a sense of urgency.
Mhm.
She had work to do, and she died young at 58, having done what she was supposed to do in terms of she was a walker. She did get good rest. She tried to eat well, but she was a Black woman living in North America, and she dealt with all that that comes with.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important for people to be kind to yourself.
Yes.
We can do the best that we can
Yes.
with exercise and diet and all of that. But the truth is that there is urgency in life,
Mm.
and there
Yeah,
will come a moment when we lay this body down.
that's right.
So it's time for us to do our work.
Mm.
Octavia has left the blueprint for us, and I would have loved for her to have known how her work continued to blow up after she passed.
Absolutely. I would too.
But the point is, she did the work.
Yes, right. She got it on the page and got it out in the world. That's exactly true. She got it done. She didn't talk about doing it, she did it.
Oh, wow. I have to let you go soon. So I would love for you to share with us, what do you think Octavia wants to say to Black women leaders today? We
Mm.
are living in a time when we are in a state of hanging on
Mm.
and forging ahead and somewhat of recovery. We've had over 320,000 Black women whole cloth laid off or fired from their jobs very intentionally.
Mhm.
And I believe that our ancestors left us clues. And just like we can count those numbers, we can also count that we are the survivors.
Right,
We are the ones who survived the Middle Passage. And
right.
we got even bigger numbers behind us. So at this time, what would you, Lynell, and you, Octavia, love to leave with my listeners?
Hmm. There are two things when I think about Octavia and when I bring it up to the future that she has eerily predicted, even though she said she wouldn't, she didn't, that she was just, as you said, she's just paying attention. And the thing is that first, ground yourself and really think about your self-worth. You're going to be buffeted about, you're going to be told all kinds of things that you're not good enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. Know that who you are. Also know that change is going to happen and that you're going to have to maybe fight to get yourself refooted and balanced. And the other thing that is a theme that's in her book that's really important, and what I have found in working in the archive and working with her, is your community is all around you. If you look up, there are women, Black women there who, because I was doing this work in the archive, and we would go and just casually meet and talk sometimes afterward, have tea, have coffee, go sit in the garden. They have now become some of my best friends and my best support. And it is about looking up and seeing and absorbing. And I think we're going to have to create communities. And that's a theme in her book, in the desolation of Parable of the Talents and Parable of the Sower. Lauren is building community, and she's
Mhm.
building community around change and uncertainty. And I think if we start to think about, well, what can we do with our skills collectively? How can we support one another? How can we build something? Because I think that's what's becoming clear. We're going to have to build something of our own. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm definitely feeling that sense in terms of the kinds of conversations I'm having with my little Black female posse. We're like, we're all planning, we're all talking about, okay, what's next? This isn't working. This structure isn't working. It wasn't built for us.
Right. Well,
It
thank
wasn't
you
built.
so much, Lynell. So I've been talking with Lynell George. She is the author of A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky, The World of Octavia E. Butler. She has reminded us that Octavia became. It was a persona that she put on in order to fully realize the person she came to Earth to become. Octavia would counsel us to use our calendar, to write down our ideas, to be intentional with whom we talked to about our dreams, to discuss with discernment, and build community. We are not alone in our work, and there's no reason for us to try to do it alone. Change is inevitable, and change can be a beautiful thing when we do it together. You've been listening to the Unlock Your Life podcast. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.